Robert Durst has been indicted for murder in the death of his former wife, Kathie, who disappeared in 1982. Kathie's family and friends have fought tirelessly to get justice for her. Durst, 78, was charged by a Westchester County Grand Jury in an indictment for murder. Durst was also recently convicted of the murder of his friend, Susan Burman. He was also tried and acquitted of the murder of his neighbor, Morris Black. He was convicted of dismembering Black's body and served 5 years in prison. Hey everybody, welcome to True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters. I'm Christy Brower, here with my sister, co-host, and partner in crime, Katie Weaver. Hey Katie.
Hello.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going good.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
I've been deeply down a rabbit hole on our case today.
Yeah.
Feeling a little cross-eyed, actually. It's just...
There's so much movement in all of our cases right now that...
you guys...
it's keeping me...
The true crime world is blowing up right now. Which
Scott
is
had the
really
nerve to
awesome.
ask what I was making for dinner, and I'm like...
True crime soup. I hope you like it.
I'm busy, baby. There's too much going on. Yeah.
Yeah, there really, really is. There really is. So today, this is our Wednesday case, and we are going to talk about Robert Durst.
Yes.
And the murder of his wife, Kathie, that actually happened in 1982. We're actually going to talk a lot about Robert Durst and the other crimes he has committed as well.
Yeah.
But this is a Kathie McCormick Durst's family and friends have fought tirelessly since she disappeared in 1982. Her body has never been found. And this is a huge victory for them, for him to finally be charged.
Yes.
Durst is 78.
Before he died.
Yeah.
Before he died.
He's 78.
Wanted to see his heart before he leaves the planet. Yeah.
Exactly. He has already been convicted of first-degree murder of his dear friend Susan Burman.
Yeah.
And is in prison currently.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to just kind of walk you through the weird, wacky, creepy, screwed up world of Robert Durst, because the dude is sketchy.
Mm-hmm.
So
would you like a word from our sponsor first?
Yes, I would. You're right. I'm getting ahead of myself, and we do.
You're just excited.
I am excited because I have put a lot of time into this. God damn it. It's also it's very interesting. And it's one of those cases that reminds you that our criminal justice system is screwed up, because if you've got money, you can get away with a lot of bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
But before that, we do need a word from our sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
Support for True Crime Paranormal is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in below-the-waist grooming and hygiene. Ladies, listen up. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for you and your man's jewels. For any women out there who have come across a hairy bush, you're now in luck. Manscaped, the best in men's below-the-waist grooming, have just launched their 4th-generation trimmer, the Lawnmower 4.0. Yes, the 4.0. Make sure your man joins the 2 million men worldwide who already trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer just for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping. That matters here at True Crime Paranormal. With the code True Crime Paranormal at manscaped.com.
A Redditor recently shared a story about her friend who decided to shave while his parents weren't home. So he threw his leg up onto the bathroom sink and gave it a go. Somehow he lost his balance, fell, and really caused a dire injury with the razor. Knowing by the amount of blood he was losing that things were serious, he wrapped himself up the best he could in a hand towel, threw on a pair of sweatpants, and headed for the emergency room. When he got to the emergency room and they took a look at the damage, it was immediately determined that they would have to remove one testicle.
Good
so
Lord.
He went straight into surgery. In the meantime, his mother returned home. He was gone. There was a trail of blood from his car all the way into his bathroom, where there was a lot of blood. So she called
Oh.
the sheriff, and the sheriff came because she thought she was looking at a crime scene. So she called the sheriff. The
Yeah.
sheriff came, checked it out, saw the razors, the hair in the sink, and said, I wonder. So he called the hospital and said, have you had any shaving injuries come in? And they said, yes, he is in surgery as we speak. So his parents made it to the hospital to, mourn the amputated nut. And there you go. It's very unfortunate that he didn't know about the lawnmower 4.0.
Right. All would have been well. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code True Crime Paranormal at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Use code True Crime Paranormal. Experience premium grooming with Manscaped. Also, no one lost a nut in the making of this commercial. And with that being said,
and speaking of someone who needs to lose a nut or two, let's talk about Durst.
Let's talk about Robert Durst. You've probably heard his name and his family's name.
Mm-hmm.
So Robert Durst was born on April 12th of 1943 in New York City. He is the oldest of 4 children, and his father was real estate magnate Seymour Durst. The Dursts are now considered billionaires. They own lots of real estate, particularly office buildings in New York City.
Okay.
So when Robert was 7, his mother died of, at the time, what was called a fall from the roof of the family's Scarsdale home. It was clearly a suicide.
Yeah.
But they said she fell. There wasn't really a lot of question about what the hell was she doing up on the roof at night.
He was how old?
7.
So maybe we give him a pass on that one. Okay.
Well, no. That's how it was actually reported in the news.
No, I mean, it just, you can't help but wonder with as many other people as he's killed if he did this one too. But he was only 7.
I got you. Yes. I think he clearly did not commit this one.
Yeah.
He swears that right before she jumped from the roof, his father walked him to a window so that he could see her standing on the roof, and that he actually witnessed her jump off the roof. Yeah.
Neat people. Wow.
Yeah. If that tells you anything about his childhood, of course, grew up with a silver spoon, never wanted for anything, also never had to work for anything.
Mm-hmm.
He and his siblings, particularly his brother Douglas, had to go through counseling for what was called sibling rivalry. Of course, they are the heirs to this huge, real estate business. And so there was a lot of competition.
Mm-hmm. Well, and clearly, not healthy fostering of relationships in this family. So
no. When he was 10, a psychiatrist that evaluated him wrote in their report that he had personality decomposition, personality disorder, and possibly schizophrenia.
At 10?
At 10. But this was 3 years after his mother's death.
Yeah.
So in high school, he was known as a loner, didn't really have a lot of friends, just didn't really connect with other people well at all. He did go through college, and while he after getting his bachelor's degree at Lehigh University, he went on to University of California in Los Angeles. He didn't stay there and actually complete his degree, but he met his best friend Susan Burman at that time.
Oh.
So super important, because you're going to see why as we go along here. So In 1973, he marries his first wife, Kathie McCormack. She was a dental hygienist and she was in medical school. No, she hadn't started medical school. She did start medical school eventually. They were running a little health food store that he started, which is what he wanted to do. He really had no interest in the real estate business at all. He didn't want to do it. But he was the oldest child, so of course his dad wanted him to do it.
Yeah.
And eventually his dad talks him into selling the health food store and moving back to New York to work at the family business. And so he and his wife Kathie, they do that. They move back to New York, and he's working in the family business. Although in some of the interviews with him, he talks about that he had all different kinds of fancy titles, but he didn't really do anything. He was mostly just sort of halfway present and got paid. Eventually, he had a lot of trouble with his brother, Douglas, because he wasn't showing up, and they actually fired him from the family business eventually.
Wow.
His brother, Douglas, actually was given the family business, control of the family business instead of Robert, because Robert didn't care, and Douglas did. There was a huge family rift over that. Ultimately, Robert sued the family over it, and he received a settlement of $65 million.
Wow.
And that's pretty much just what he lived on for the rest of his life. Like, he didn't really do anything else except for hide out and kill people. There is that. For a while, his brother Douglas actually had hired a bodyguard to protect him because Robert had made some pretty significant threats against him. So in 1980, Robert and Kathie separate. She's asking for a divorce. Things are not good with them at all. And he doesn't want to give her a divorce. She asks him for a settlement that he does not want to pay. Unfortunately, this leads to her disappearance. So on January 31st of 1982, Kathie goes to a party in Connecticut that was held by her friend Gilberta Najami. While she's there, she gets a call from Robert and gets upset, and they have an argument on the phone, and she leaves and says that she has to go back home. Before she leaves, she goes to her friend Gilberta, and she says, if something happens to me, you will check it out, right? I'm afraid of what Bobby will do.
Wow.
So basically, the story that gets told is that she comes home, and this is all very sanitized and told by Durst.
Of course.
That they argue, and then she says she wants to go into the city. They had an apartment in Manhattan, and she was in medical school at this point. She was in her 4th year of medical school and was, doing her residency. And so she needed to go back to the city. He wouldn't let her take a car because she'd been drinking, and also because he was just a controlling jackass, frankly. And so he said that he took her to a train station and dropped her off, and that she was going to take a train into the city. He said that he talked to her after she got to their apartment and that things seemed fine. And that was the last time he ever heard from her or saw her.
Oh, how convenient.
Yes, very convenient, right? Family, friends. I mean, she just stopped showing up to school. She's a 4th year medical student.
Right.
You don't
not show up. Yeah.
Right. You don't. And of course, her friend Gilberta is really worried and goes to the police, and they just blow her off. Finally, after no one has seen or spoken to her in 4 or 5 days, Robert reports her missing. And again, he just sort of makes it off like, we've been fighting, we're getting a divorce, and so what do? They decide she's just run off.
Of course. Of
while in
course.
medical school. Of
Like
course
all
she
these
did,
silly women do. Yeah.
right? So ridiculous. So they do not investigate this. They
My
consider it
God.
a missing person. They just don't. They don't search his house. They don't look at his phone records to see if the phone calls he said she made were even true. Somebody called on that Monday to the medical school and said she was sick and wasn't going to be in that day. Um, it's believed now that that was probably Susan Burman that made that phone call,
Yeah.
and that Susan helped Robert through this whole situation
Hmm.
and became his spokesperson. Because, of course, you know, we're talking rich people here.
Yeah.
Also, apparently, Kathie was well known for being beautiful. And so all of the news headlines at the time that she went missing: beautiful young wife missing,
Hmm.
flaxen haired beauty, blah, blah, blah. It's gross. It's
Hmm.
super duper gross.
Yeah.
Okay. But they find nothing. And Kathie just disappears into nothing because
Oh.
they really never even looked for her. They didn't even try.
Yeah.
They treated it like she just ran off because she was mad at her husband and that was it. Well, she never turned up. Nothing
Yeah.
ever turned up, right? So in 2000, investigators in Westchester County, New York, which is where um, she was last for sure seen before getting on the train that there is no proof she ever even took,
Hmm.
they reopened the case into her disappearance.
Okay.
And police decide they're at the behest of some of Kathie's friends. They say, please go talk to Susan Burman. She's Robert's best friend. You know, if
Hmm.
anybody knows anything, it's her. And so the police are planning to go out there to talk to her. And actually, the local police do talk to her.
Hmm.
And then she is found in her home in Benedict Canyon, California, shot to death execution style on December
Oh
24th in 2000.
my God.
And of course, they question Robert again, but it goes
Hmm.
nowhere.
Yeah.
You know, but a lot of people are like, are you kidding me? They were about to question her.
Yeah.
There were a lot of things going on with her at
I
that
mean,
time.
this is exactly what it looks like. I mean, that's
Right.
not that hard.
No, it isn't that hard at all. And she was really struggling at the time, had actually borrowed a ton of money, including $50,000 from Robert.
Hmm.
And she was telling her friends she was about to break a huge story. Susan Burman was the daughter of a mobster in Las Vegas. And they thought it had to do with the mob because she was a writer and a journalist and she'd done a lot of
Hmm.
writing about the mob. People now think that maybe she was going to tell the Kathie Durst story because
Ah.
she needed something, you know.
Hmm.
But we don't know for sure.
Yeah.
So again, this murder just goes completely unsolved. In 2001, Kathie Durst is declared dead. Her body's never found, but she's been gone for nearly 20 years.
Yeah.
And so the family asks for her to be declared dead. And then they immediately start suing Robert Durst for her death.
Yeah.
They try to sue him several times. It's never successful. Also, though, in 2001, on October 9th, Robert Durst is arrested and charged with the murder of Morris Black, who was a neighbor of his, because at this point, Durst is living in Galveston, Texas. He basically took off and decided to disappear. When they reopened the case,
Hmm.
he gets scared and he
Hmm.
takes off. And so he's living, if you can freaking believe this, he's living in an apartment in Galveston, Texas, and he is disguised as a deaf mute woman.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So he's like, this is how scared he is that they're looking
Hmm.
for him. And So the landlord believes that the apartment is rented by a deaf mute woman who travels a lot for work. Does that seem odd to anyone? Seems odd to me. Durst later said that he knew that he couldn't disguise his voice,
Hmm.
and that's why he had to be mute. And he just
Holy
threw in
cow.
deaf because it seemed to fit this dude, let me tell you. So he got to be friends with Morris Black, who was a neighbor of his in the apartment complex where he lived. Morris Black was well known for being one difficult, cranky old dude. He was always mad at somebody for something.
Hmm.
But Durst has never been someone who has great social skills either, so they kind of got to be friends.
Sure.
Well, he basically reveals to Morris Black that, after a short amount of time, that he is in fact not a deaf mute woman. And that he is Robert Durst, and that he just didn't want to be Robert Durst anymore. And so this is all being told, of course, by Durst in a
Right.
bunch of interviews that he's done because Morris is dead.
Well, clearly.
Yeah. But it does make you wonder if Morris got a little too curious about who Durst was, or maybe was going to tell somebody who Durst was, because he had revealed his actual identity to Morris Black.
Or Durst just got paranoid.
Yeah. Yeah. Very well could be, because Durst. Whew. Okay. So somebody finds a torso floating in Galveston Bay.
Somebody just finds a torso, like you do. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so they go looking and they find a bunch of other body parts floating in black plastic bags.
Oh my God.
So they eventually identify the body as Morris Black. They become pretty quickly suspicious of Durst. They figure out who Durst is, of course. And they start looking into Durst and they're like, oh, holy crap, he's already, been considered a suspect in his wife's murder. He's probably the person who did this. So they arrest him and they charge him with the murder of Morris Black. They set his bond at $250,000.
Huh.
And
Easy peasy.
Right. The detective says, we've set your bond at $250,000. Do you have that kind of money? And he said, well, not on me. So, right. I know. I'm like, you're such a jackass. He is such a jackass.
Yeah.
So he makes a phone call to his current wife. So now after, let me get you his name because I just blanked on it. He now is married to someone else.
So what, after he comes out of the deaf mute woman closet,
I guess
married?
He's married to this woman that they don't appear to actually really be in a relationship. Like this seems more like some kind of business transaction to help him protect his money.
Oh.
And I'm still blanking on her name. I will find it as soon as I can, and I will tell you her name. But anyway, he calls her, and by the next morning, his money has arrived and he is bonded out. Well, they just assume that he's going to show up for court,
Of
because
course.
he's been charged with murder.
He's such a stand-up guy. Why wouldn't he?
Well, and he's just a rich guy. He's going to show up, All rich guys are good guys, right? Jesus Christ, you guys. Okay, so no, he does not show up. He goes on the lam. He had court on October 16th. And he took off.
Let me guess. He's dressed up as a blind chihuahua living in Kentucky, or
right. He was kind of, disguising himself. Durst is really his own worst enemy in so many ways, though. because he was apprehended on November 30th of that same year, 2001, in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. And the reason that he was apprehended is because he tried to shoplift a chicken sandwich and a couple of other things.
Oh my God.
And he was busted by the store he was in. And then, of course, they figure out who he is. He was going by the name Morris Black, and he had Morris Black's driver's license.
What?
Because, I guess that's what you do when you kill somebody.
Then take over their identity?
I guess.
The person who you're doing court to defend yourself over? Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, we're not talking criminal mastermind here. We really aren't. There've just been a lot of, overlooking things because, he's just wealthy and he's just a little eccentric or
a little bit,
completely wackadoodle. So he goes to trial. So of course they hold him in jail after that. And it takes 2 years for him to go to trial on the murder of Morris Black. So his lawyers say that he committed this murder in self-defense. Which, here's the big problem. When they charge him with murder, and they don't, a lot of times when you see somebody charged with murder, you'll also see a manslaughter charge in there, you'll see a second-degree murder in there, that kind of thing, so that the jury kind of can decide, what burden of proof did the prosecution meet.
Yeah.
Oh, no, they only charged him with murder.
Oh.
Well, the jury comes back with they totally believe he did it, but they don't think it was first degree. And because they have not met the burden of proof for first degree, he is acquitted.
Oh, for God's sake.
However, Durst has admitted to actually dismembering him, so they charge him with the dismemberment, and he is sentenced to 5 years in prison. So he'd already done 2 awaiting trial, so he does 3 more. So also at this time, Durst's lawyers kind of start thinking that something's a little off with this guy.
What?
So they have a psychological evaluation in which they diagnose him with Asperger's syndrome. And they do try to use this diagnosis as part of the reason for the murder of Morris Black. Oh. Which pisses me off.
Poor shit. Yeah. There's a lot of people on this planet with Asperger's. It certainly doesn't make them murderers.
Yeah.
In fact, far from, that's just horrible. That is awful.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely awful. So in 2005, he is paroled, but he immediately violates the terms of his parole because he goes back to visit the home where he killed Morris Black. And he goes back to jail for a couple of years. Just like, what? So then in 2010, there is a film called All Good Things. And this film is a fictionalized version of his life, including what happened to his wife, Kathie. Well, this gets him super interested in, because Durst loves attention, man. He loves being in the limelight. So he starts giving these interviews with the director of the film and talking to him and telling him some things about his life and admitting that not everything that he said happened. And, there's some stuff that in there that makes you really question. So then in 2015, the documentary, which I have been binging today, it's called The Jinx, The Life and Deaths of Robert Durst, comes out on HBO. Well, it kind of spun out of his conversations with the directors of the film All Good Things. And against his attorney's recommendations and his wife's recommendations, he tells them all kinds of stuff. So I've watched a bunch of it.
So
And
he's just enjoying this immensely.
very much so. He admits that he lied to the police about the circumstances leading up to Kathie's disappearance.
Mm-hmm.
That he just says, well, I just told them whatever they needed to hear so that they wouldn't think it was me. I don't know. So it's almost like he did all of this not thinking there would be any consequences for this.
Or he just doesn't care.
Just maybe. I don't know.
It's worth the trade-off. He's just not right.
He's not. And I'll tell you something. If you watch the Jinx, when Robert Burman talks, if he tells a lie, he does this after the lie. He blinks really hard.
Really?
Every time he lies, he blinks really hard.
Wow.
I watched it over and over again, and I pointed it out to Rhonda. I'm like, watch it. Watch this guy. Every time he lies, he blinks really hard. And he does.
Because interesting. Now I'm doing it. Oh, damn it.
Right. He's talking about things in this documentary that we now know are lies. Mm-hmm. And so, like, you can verify it. But he has a very clear tell when he's lying. So all of this kind of makes the police go, well, maybe we ought to be looking into this jackass again.
Weird.
Yeah. Weird. So right after the Jinx airs, it premieres on HBO on February 8th of 2015. So on March 9th of 2015, the Los Angeles District Attorney reopens the Susan Burman murder investigation because there's evidence revealed in the Jinx, including someone sent a letter to the police in Los Angeles that was telling them that there was a cadaver at the address of Susan's house. Apparently, because even though he had to kill her, he didn't want her to have to sit there and rot in her own house, I guess. I don't know. He actually talks about it in the Jinx and, basically implies that it was him. So FBI arrests him on March 14th of 2015 for the murder of Susan Burman. He was at this point in a New Orleans hotel. I don't know what he was dressed as this time, but I'm sure something because he was always on the run. At this point, the FBI was concerned that he was going to try to flee the FBI or flee the country because the Jinx had finally finished airing all 6 episodes. And he did have falsified identification and stuff with him when they arrested him,
I'm sure
which made it look like he was trying to, use. He used a lot of different aliases all throughout his life. Yeah. So let's see. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things that happens in the Jinx at the end is that he's caught on an open mic at the end when he doesn't know that they're recording him. And he says, there it is. You're caught. What the hell did I do? Killed them all, of course. And he says all this off camera, but they have the video or they have the audio.
Jeez.
Yeah. They didn't know at the time that they even had it, but found it in editing. So he waives his right to extradition. And so then they take him to Los Angeles to face charges.
Yeah.
But the New Orleans police were considering filing weapons charges against him because, he was always packing weapons and not just always doing illegal shit.
Yeah.
That he just was getting away with, for his whole life.
Yeah. I mean, he did minor jail time, but yeah, clearly he was just going to do whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
Come what may. Yeah.
He definitely did. But he.
So they charge him with Kathie's murder.
They get him back into California. And in February of 2017, during a hearing, one of Durst's friends, Nick Chauvin, said that Robert had actually confessed to him that he did kill Susan Burman.
Wow.
Yeah. So in October of 2018, a judge ruled that there was enough evidence to try him for her murder.
Mm-hmm.
So he was arraigned in November 2018. He pled not guilty. And because
Of course he did. Yeah.
Right. So he was supposed to be tried in September of 2019. But of course, we had COVID, and then there were troubles with his attorney's schedules. And there was so much evidence to get through that they didn't actually try him until this year.
Wow.
Yeah. He did agree to a bench trial without a jury. So it did finally go to trial. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
In August of 2021, in September, he was convicted of Susan Burman's murder.
Oh, so that just happened.
It just happened. Yeah.
Okay.
That's why this is relevant. Even though this is it feels like an old case, it isn't. He was just
convicted.
He was just convicted in September.
Mm-hmm.
And was sentenced to life in prison without a chance of parole.
That seems wise. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. At this point, let's hang on to him.
I mean, that could only be a few years at this point. So
right, he's 78.
Yeah.
And he's not looking so great, to be perfectly honest.
But in prison,
Yeah. Not great for old rich guys. So on October 19th of 2021, he was charged with murder in Kathleen Durst's death, or disappearance, I guess, is what it is at this point. They fully believe that she is dead. They have looked and looked and looked for her body. They have not found it, but at this point, they do feel like they have enough to take him to trial on her murder, which would just be a miracle for whoever's left in her family,
Yeah.
Because there has been a lot of pressure placed on the system, over the years. Not that it really helped, frankly.
Yeah.
But they do believe that he killed Susan Burman to prevent her from incriminating him.
Yeah.
In her death, that when they reopened it in 2000, that's why he had to kill her. During the trial of the murder of Susan Burman, he testified that he didn't kill Susan or Kathie. But when he was cross-examined, he did say that even if he had, he would have lied about it and said he didn't.
Yeah.
This guy, okay?
My God.
But, Kathie Durst's disappearance is a very famous, unsolved true crime case. And it looks like it might actually get a solution here. Along with Susan Burman, Susan Burman, who had been his friend and supported him and tried to help him through most of his adult life.
Yeah.
And, got killed for it. So, we'll keep an eye on his trial.
Yeah.
And we'll update you as it goes forward.
Yeah.
But go watch the Jinx, really. Go watch his video. Go watch watch those interviews with him and watch him blink really hard every time he lies. It's right there. It's really sad because he's been allowed to be, some people call him a serial killer. I don't know that he really is a serial killer, really, because he's not a cold-blooded kill people for murder, kill people for the sake of killing them kind of person. It's more like when people get in his way, then he must remove them.
Well, as far as we know.
As far as we
there's
know.
More murders around him that we don't know about.
Right. And we don't know for sure. That's 100% very true that we don't know.
Wow.
But at this point, at least Susan Burman's family can have some peace, at least, and hopefully Kathie Durst family as well. And Morris Black, I don't know what to say about that. It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
But it's pretty clear that he did also kill him.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you've been seeing things about Robert Durst in the news, that's why.
Mm-hmm.
Go watch The Jinx. It's incredibly interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And just watching him, all the interviews with him, he is a strange little dude. And yeah, it's just one of those. This has been one of those true crime conundrums about Kathie Durst that has been around for nearly 40 years.
Well, I'm so happy for her family.
Yeah, I am too.
That are still here, surely. Yeah.
Yeah, at least maybe there's going to be a little justice for her and for Susan Burman.
Mm-hmm.
Because you apparently you don't cross Robert Durst without getting killed.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's a big chicken. Like he's a real. Yeah. There's a real conundrum there that he's going to kill people that get in his way, but also he's going to use, frankly, some absolutely terrible disguises and terrible aliases. He's not a criminal mastermind.
Mm-hmm.
But his name and his money, man, he's gotten away with a whole lot.
I heard he used aliases like Harry Butts and no.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. There are quite a few, but none of them really make any sense at all. But to use Morris Black after he just killed him and was on the run from being tried for his death, like seriously,
like
and
that's the
had
best you
his
could do.
driver's license, like, dude, yeah. So. I hope you enjoyed that. It's a very interesting story.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad. This is our Wednesday case, so we will be back tonight with our case updates.
Huge
there are
stuff.
Many. So, be sure to join us at 7 p.m. Mountain tonight.
Mm-hmm.
We will be live streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and Spoon to give you all a shot at hearing what all's going on. We're going to update a whole bunch of cases. We will be back tomorrow, Thursday at 7 p.m. Mountain for the Psychic Hour. Yep. It is the first Thursday in November.
It is.
So you know what that means? It's marching orders.
Indeed.
That will be very fun, and we'll probably have some pop-ups this weekend. So
yeah,
as always, stay tuned. We have lots more good stuff coming.
We will.
Yes, absolutely. Well, you know it. We are True Crime Paranormal with the Psychic Sisters. Thanks for being here.
Take care.